everybody, welcome to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Mike Catalana, along with Dan Fetes. Jenna Cottrell getting a Veterans Night off. How's that sound? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Can we refer to her as a veteran? She's one of the veterans. As we appreciate everybody coming in with us tonight. We're gonna let everybody vent, and then might talk them off the ledge a little bit. Might talk them back on the ledge a little bit. Right, Dan?
Yes. Yeah. I don't think any of us expected to have this StreamYard today or this YouTube live show today.
Yep. By the way, we're going to start with a comment right away, and I'm going to let you take it.
Ever.
Yep. I think Carl's on to something.
Oh, what was that one?
Josh's. Did you read it?
What was it? Do we want to waste Josh's prime having an OC learning on the job? It's my biggest concern heading into the season, wasn't it, Mike?
It's what bothers me. Look, does Ken Dorsey deserve more time? 1 year as a play caller? I get that. Not with a team that was, I think, 13 seconds away from going to the Super Bowl. I think they would have won the next week.
Yeah.
And with a quarterback like Josh, there's no learning on the job. I didn't like hearing that. Oh, it's first year and he'll grow. Yeah, he'll grow. You don't have time to let him grow. If he's not ready, I think the reason you hired Dorsey was because you thought it would be as seamless as you could. He's been the quarterback's coach, and he'd walk in. I didn't think it was seamless.
No, and that was what you brought him in for, was that you overlooked the rookiness of him, that it felt like they could have gotten more experience, but they didn't want to because they wanted familiarity. They chose familiarity over experience. And I think that came back to bite them in the butt. And again, Mike, you and I have talked about in a couple of these drives up to Buffalo we've had recently that box score scouts will sit here and tell you that the offense was the same, if not better, in a lot of categories. But that's just not accurate. It just wasn't. And players regressed. And while we can all say that, development isn't linear and it's not a steady increase every year, it's hard not to look at a lot of these players were players that came back and they invested in, like Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, and they underperformed. And the only thing that changed was the offensive coordinator.
Yeah. I want to put this comment up. This is from John M. Blue. You're too nice when you ask questions in the presser. You know what you want. Just don't tiptoe. I'm not tiptoeing. Here's what I'm doing. I ask questions in a way that's going to elicit a response, as in an answer to the question. I'm not looking to ask a question so that they just respond to my question. Meaning, like, I'm not trying to get anybody, fired up. So everybody says, oh, what a question Mike asked there. I want the guy to answer it. I want to hear an answer. I'm not just doing it to hear myself ask. And we asked those questions. I asked Bean, what's it like going to be the underdog next year? And I think you thought he pushed back a little bit on being an underdog.
Yeah.
And there's all levels of underdog. I don't mean they're an underdog like they're, the Texans. I'm talking about they're an underdog is a clear hierarchy in the AFC now. It's the Bengals and Chiefs ahead of the Bills.
And that irks them. That
the
bothers
Bengals irk them. The Bengals bother them more than the Chiefs, I think. I think because it's accepted that the Chiefs are the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think you've accepted the Chiefs are the Chiefs. It's Andy Reid. It's a Hall of Fame coach. It's a Hall of Fame quarterback. It's that kind of organization. You don't expect that out of the Cincinnati Bengals.
But I kind of like the edge that the Bengals play with.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Eli Apple. He needs to shut up. He's not good enough to talk that much trash. And bringing up DeMar Hamlin in your tweets was just idiotic. And I'm glad Shaq went after him. But,
But you know what they kind of remind, like I said, they have way more talent than the heyday of the Patriots in the middle of their dynasty. But the Patriots used to make up those narratives and they would latch on like nobody gives us a chance. And it's like, Who didn't give Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and those guys a chance? And the Bengals have latched on to this, not the who day, but like, why not us? And nobody's counting us and nobody's giving us a chance. And then they latched on to this refund the tickets. Like, oh, they're selling the tickets and disrespecting us when the Bengals sold the tickets too and had to refund their own fans. But that doesn't play for the narrative, Mike. Like, they are really good at creating a vacuum, an echo chamber where they only listen to themselves. So I give them credit in that sense. And again, I think Joe Burrow played outstanding. And this was one of those times. If you want to know what you want to see in an offensive coordinator, like watching what the Bengals were able to do to the Bills, who were obviously flawed in their defense on Sunday.
Right.
The Bengals just had phenomenal play design, like left and right. They had answers and they expected to get zone. That's what they got. And they had plays that were drawn up and designed to beat zones. And that is not something I ever saw from Ken Dorsey this season. Plays being designed to beat what they were expecting to see.
Yeah. So I see this one. It just popped up. We've seen this a lot. Frazier's got to go. And look, I'm not going to sit here and defend everything that Leslie Frazier has done. But what I will say is that Leslie Frazier did not have his full defense on the field, and they had.
I think he gets the bigger pass. Yeah.
If they're going to say that, I mean, look, I love the move for Von Miller. I still think it was a great move. The injury was not because he was 32 years old. The injury was he got rolled up on. It was impactful. And you're playing without Hyde all year, and Poyer was banged up, and they had lost players left and right during the year. And I'm using those as reasons, not excuses, that they were not a full go. What I'm worried about is, Dan, that offense on the field Sunday was the starting offense for the Bills.
Yeah.
Every guy, right?
Yeah.
Every one of them. There was nobody missing from the offense, and they played like that. And that's not all on Ken Dorsey. I want to know what people think here. Does Brandon Beane deserve heat? I love Beane. I think Beane has been an outstanding general manager.
Yeah.
But that roster has taken a hit because they're not getting the production out of guys they were counting on.
Yeah, Mike and I were talking today in the sports office, just the fact of who's the best player drafted from the last 4 drafts. It's been well documented. People have talked about it that the Beane hasn't drafted a Pro Bowler in the last 4 years. So after the 2018 draft, which was Josh and Tremaine and Taryn and Wyatt Teller, a lot of those guys, he hasn't drafted anybody since. And it's slim pickings. And it's a lot of guys that just haven't produced. And I'm starting to have a little bit. This was what my fear was last year. And it seems like I'm saying some of these things and I'm going to say them again heading into this offseason and heading into next year, that like you need to give Josh Allen more resources. And it's kind of giving the vibes that when the Packers just expected Aaron Rodgers to cover up all of the flaws that team had on their roster because they didn't draft any offensive players in the first round for all those years and things like that. Like you can't expect to pay somebody $250 million and then be like, you fix everything on a banged up offensive line. Like Roger Saffold did not live up to what his expectations were. Spencer Brown regressed. Deion Dawkins played well towards the end of the season. He's probably a little bit more banged up. There's just a lot of questions about what are you doing for your franchise quarterback? Because the Bengals went out, revamped their entire offensive line. They have given him skill position after skill position players to be an asset, and it's paid off.
Yeah, they have no identity on offense. I think that's a problem. I think the identity was, all right, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, right? Saffold is a run blocker. Well, he didn't block anybody. Yeah. So it's not fair to say that he does one thing well when he didn't do anything well.
Yeah, no, the offensive line is a problem. And, look at what they've used the assets on. Beane has used them on the defensive line, no doubt. Ed Oliver was a number 1 pick. Greg Rousseau was a number 1 pick. You had a number 2 pick in Boogie Basham, a number 2 pick in AJ Epinesa, and they've spent some free agent money there. On the offensive line, early on, Deion was there from the 17 draft, and they brought in Mitch Morris, who I think was a good signing for them. But I mean, look, Spencer Brown's been a disappointment. Roger Saffold was not a good signing. Right guard has been a problem forever. Yeah, that line is not good enough. And then add into the fact of, like you talk about the weapons. And this is why I say, and Beans used those resources he has on running backs, high picks on running backs, and both of them are going to be gone, right? I think Singletary's going to be gone.
Agreed.
And they're not going to give him a new contract. And already, Zach Moss is gone. So maybe it's James Cook. Maybe he gets that chance. But you've spent high draft picks on running backs. You've spent more draft picks on running backs than you have on offensive linemen.
Yeah. And I know we can vent here and all that stuff. This isn't some total rebuild and gut job like some of the comments that are coming in as well. Like, this isn't, you have Josh Allen and you have Stephon Diggs and, you have Trey White and, you have Matt Milano. So you have some pieces. Like, it's not, I know this seems bad and I know we can be critical and it's okay to be critical. It's okay to be critical of Josh's play, Beans, evaluating of talent and what he's brought in, but maybe it's still a little fresh to start pressing the panic button, blow everything up and start over again.
Yeah. I'm not blowing everything up. I'm saying that they need to say to themselves, Josh Allen is a star. We build the team around him. Let's load up for Josh Allen. Let's find a way to get him some help.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with the offensive line and absolutely a weapon. And I want a young, athletic wide receiver, maybe with some size. I mean, and then maybe for next year, Gabe Davis goes back to that third guy role where he was effective. More effective because he wasn't ready for the 2 spot. He just wasn't. And like you can bounce back.
Absolutely.
Because you have Allen. But you better get him some more help. And trying to piece things together, and look, they tried a bunch of stuff. $250 million Ferrari is as somebody's talking about with Josh. But
yeah. That was my thing before the season, was that the sense of you were giving this Ferrari that is the Bills offense to a coach with a learner's permit. And guess what? He didn't know how to work the clutch on the manual transmission, and the car stalled a couple times and it's grinding and it's not great. And like I said, I understand that we talk about players developing isn't linear. I agree that probably offensive coordinator is also not the easiest job to do, but it appears, at least at this point, that Ken Dorsey will remain the offensive coordinator. I feel like a move, Mike, would you have said a move would have been made now if it was going to get made?
Yeah. I mean, we saw Frank Reich got the head coaching job in Carolina.
Yeah.
Ken Dorsey had at least interviewed for that. Look, if the Bills were going to make a move on Dorsey, I mean, this sounds like, but I don't think they would have been making it while he was still in consideration if he was for the Carolina job. But I don't think they're doing that anyhow. I think Dorsey's back.
Right. My concern, Mike, is the fact of if this offense stumbles out of the gates again or out of the gates next year and they lose a couple games and they're 2-2 and their offense isn't clicking, do you then fire him?
Yeah,
I feel like he's got a short, right. That's what I'm saying. I feel like it's a short leash that he's playing on thin ice. And I said before the game, and we talked about it in the Buffalo Plus recap after the game, it was half joke, half kidding. But I went into that game against the Bengals and I said, is Ken Dorsey coaching for his job today? Because the Miami game didn't go great. And I thought that was the sign of thin ice. And then the Bengals game was a disaster.
I think if that was even a consideration, the Bengals game would have sealed his fate. And look, you cannot, and Bean said this, and he's right. Yes, it shows you where you are with the last game, but you cannot overreact with everything to that last game. And there are some issues. And look, you look around the teams playing this weekend, the Bills' offensive line, look, you guys know, and I was talking about on the radio today. Obviously, I follow the Eagles. I have for a long time. There isn't a single Bills offensive lineman who would start for the Eagles. And there is not a single Bills defensive lineman who would start for the Eagles. And I'm including Von Miller in there. He
Yeah.
wouldn't start for the Eagles on that side, as Hassan Reddick is younger and more explosive at the time. Boy, lines of scrimmage are tough. So we can blame coordinators all we want, and some of it is player development and coaches, but some of it is the talent that's there. And I want to see, again, all these resources in defense, but they haven't put enough in their offense.
No, and that's where, again, I know some people when I say some comments or have my opinions on running the ball or something like that, and people will say, "Hey, Mike, they led the league in yards per rush," like some of that stuff. Well, it's a mirage. Like, you have to apply some context to it. Obviously, Josh Allen, being the unicorn that he is, accounts for a lot of the rushing yards and yards per attempt. So some of this stuff where it's like, oh, they need to run the ball more. It's like, well, everybody was telling me how great they were at running the ball and that they were so, yards per carry was number one in the league. So they need to address some of this. Again, the identity of what is Ken Dorsey going to bring to the offense, because Colin Cowherd's right. Josh Allen being a freak and, isn't an identity or a game plan.
Yeah, they don't have an identity on offense. They just don't. And you need defense to win in this league. You absolutely do. But usually it's the offense that carries you. Like, you have defense, to me, is about turnovers and getting some stops. It's not about being number one in yardage, and it's like finding a way to get the ball back and get it in good position and go on your offense. And, it's funny that McDermott's been getting heat for not going for it on this play and that play. And then I see people say McDermott hasn't evolved at all. McDermott was going for it all the time for a while. I think he lost faith in his offense. I mean, there was a time where you're like, 4th and 5, go ahead. We're going for it. And they were aggressive. By the way, Paul says, Mike, it's not just one game, it's in season. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I'm saying is you can't overreact. The last game was by far the worst. To Dan's point, they were finding a way to score 28, 30 points in games.
Yeah.
And it
that's
didn't
what people
feel right.
Correct. That's what people will look at. And again,
look at the Miami game.
Yeah.
Look at the New England game at the end of the year. It took 2 kick returns, but even on offense, it was. I made this
the Bears
analogy.
game. Look at the Bears game first.
Dan always uses the baseball analogy. I said this on the radio to our buddy Sal Majorana, who was a big Yankees fan. I said the Bills' offense is like the Yankees' offense.
Mm-hmm.
Swing for the fences, built for the regular season, and gets exposed in tight moments. No identity. There's nobody moving the runners. There's nothing. I'd ask fans, and I want you to see it. I want to see it in the comments. It's 3rd and 4.5. Okay? What play do you want from the Bills' offense? You want to pass to Diggs, or you want Allen to run the ball? That's my 2 plays, because you have more faith in that. Do you have a guy, except for Diggs, and I guess Beasley used to do this, but who's running a slant over the middle getting you 8 yards? Khalil Shakir now, maybe? I don't know. Like, what do you want there? That's where your identity is. You watch the Niners play. You watch the Eagles play. You watch the Bengals play. The Bengals 6-7 yards on first down on every play. They have identities. They know what they want to come in to do. Yeah, they're saying Allen, run the ball. Yeah. Oh, great. Yankees have 27 rings. Well, they haven't had one in a while. Watch their offense now. So
yeah, that's the other comment too. And like I said, I think and rightfully so. Where was the one about Hines? Yeah, I think this obviously comes about Naeem Hines. The fact that I think Bean gets credit for making the move and getting rid of Zach Moss. Like,
yeah,
you can't look at the hindsight of, well, the production didn't make the production didn't live up to the trade. The trade was a good trade. And I find that sense where even Bean, who Mike and I have talked about it, his press conference, he's always great. He's always honest to a point. He will always give you something. Right. He never gives you the whole thing. I thought he came off maybe a hair defensive, standing up for his guys. A couple of it, not excuses, but kind of said it was an excuse without saying it was an excuse.
Yeah.
But he even said, he's like, yeah, it would have been great to get Hines more involved in the offense.
Okay, this one that bothers me a little bit. You hear Hines. He's a great talker, appears to be a bright guy. My God, they talk about him getting acclimated to the offense like it's rocket science here. Seriously, come up with a package of plays for him. It's not like
And
you got
that's
to run the
right.
whole
And
offense
that's not on
around him.
Bean. Right. That's not on Bean. That's on Dorsey.
It is. It is. By the way, the question was about the screen. You know why they can't run a screen? Because they don't have athletes on the offense. I take that back. That sounds stupid. They don't have those kind of athletes on the offensive line. The offensive line doesn't have an identity. They're not maulers. They're not great athletes. They don't have anybody out running in front of the play. You think about what offensive lineman do you want out front of a play on a screen? I used to think it could be Spencer Brown, and I know he was nicked up and he wasn't healthy. I thought Dion struggled for the second part of the year, and maybe it's in part because everybody around him is struggling too. But, and that's when you start talking about, I don't know what Aaron Cromer was supposed to bring. He's had success in this league, but that offensive line didn't look good. Like, I would say the one thing when I asked Bean about the underdog thing, I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe it's a good thing, Dan, because everything's on the table. Like Jimmy Salgado got fired today, the safeties coach.
Great guy.
Great guy. He's coaching the safeties. I mean, you lose Hyde for the year, and Poyer's banged up all season. Damar Hamlin was a pretty good player. He's not Micah Hyde. We all know that.
Yeah.
Maybe they're thinking they're going to get younger and they want a different kind of coach. I would hope it's one of a series of moves. I would hope it's not like, that safeties coach really was the one that cost us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we'll see. But what my point was, I want everything to be on the table.
I agree.
For this offseason. Everything. I say everything. Diggs isn't going. No matter how cranky Diggs got, he'll be fine. He's going to get the ball a ton. By the way, you look at Diggs' numbers. First half of the year, his catches for both halves of the year were similar. His yardage was double in the first half of the year from the second half of the year. It was a lot of short plays.
Yeah. I mean, it really was a frustrating year because we kind of always expected guys to just get better. Like I said, Isaiah McKenzie had a phenomenal training camp. I don't know what happened. Gabe Davis, I know he injured his ankle back in week 2 or 3, and he just didn't seem like he had it ever since. Again, and I just keep going to this point of, I know I made a couple of videos. One was about, the fact that Josh never had freebies, that Dorsey never drew up quick designed, easy plays for Josh. And the creativity was there. Like I look at what Kyle, I would love an offensive coordinator that's had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay. Like I would love, like just somebody that can bring in a sense of like Kyle Shanahan. What he has done with Brock Purdy is just outstanding. And we all think that this quarterbacking is this high level, complex reading. And it is. But your offensive coordinator and your coaches should take some of that off. Like Brock Purdy's not going through 7-8 reads.
Well,
now Brock Purdy also has weapons that are way better. So it's all encompassing. So while we're sitting here going, it's Dorsey, it's McDermott, it's Josh, it's Bean, it's all of it.
Yeah, I would say this. They're simplifying things as best they can. They're basically saying to Purdy, here's where we want you to throw the ball, and if that's not open, throw it out of bounds.
What's wrong with that?
No, but guess what? It works to a point. It works to a point. Again, this is Brock Purdy. They will know likely they need better or he needs to be better going forward. You have Josh Allen, who can read defenses and can make all kinds of plays. If that's the offense you're running for Josh Allen, you got the wrong guy running it.
Agreed. And Purdy has one of the best offensive lines. Yeah.
Structure for him.
Yep.
They need something. They need to get back to, and this is where, not that we need to take this over with the run game, but Josh needs something else where it's not always Josh Allen. And there are moments where it's like, okay, because you can be effective doing both. This team doesn't do it because oh, by the way, stop with the Isaiah Hodgins stuff. Like I see people were saying Isaiah Hodgins was the only guy standing. When he got against a real secondary, he did nothing. He's a nice kid, nice player. He's a 4th wide receiver. That's what the Giants had. So he wouldn't play for the Bills. Even if they brought him back, he's not playing for the Bills.
I agree. But
Talent.
it's also when you have that fat face coaching him up, he looks pretty good.
But that being said, and I love Dable, he's coaching Daniel Jones and no wide receivers. Now, give him more, and, well,
Yeah.
LA
Well,
didn't win
it's
until
funny
he
you
had a
talk
running
about
game. LA
Mike.
went to the Super Bowl. He just didn't win the Super Bowl. But
Yeah. And Mike, you talk about the fact that, needing to have an identity, needing to have that go-to play. And like, you can win games without them sometimes because Josh is just that much of a freak. But I look at another team, and it was what Dan Orlovsky had talked about with the Minnesota Vikings, that like throwing the ball 20 times a game to Justin Jefferson is not sustainable to win. And like, how many wins they had and all this stuff. And it was great. Minnesota was this great team and all this stuff. And it was like, yeah, but like that wasn't sustainable. And like, to your point, they need something else. So like they need something that like I'm all for, and have been saying that like it's okay to force the ball when you're forcing it to Stephon Diggs. Like,
he's the guy you force it to.
Screw it. Throw it to him. If he's double
if you're
going to
force it. And we say force. It doesn't mean you throw it into triple coverage. It means we're going to get him, Mo Brown. Dable had a Hall of Fame. He doesn't have a Hall of Fame running back. He's got Saquon Barkley, who's a nice player, who's been hurt a lot. He's above average, but no, he doesn't have a Hall of Fame running back. And I don't want Saquon Barkley on the Bills. I think he's a heck of a guy. I'm not spending money on a running back. They spent enough assets on running backs. Find a veteran. You have a running back in Cook. You need to get a wide receiver.
I'm fine with Cook in Hines.
Like, so
I'm totally fine with that running back room. And if Duke Johnson is the third guy, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, there's backs that are going to be out. There's always backs that are going to be out there.
And I like Saquon. I would take trading for Saquon. Yeah.
I would take a bigger back to help them a little bit, to go with those two, that there was maybe moments, limited carries, somebody good in pass protection. You want a veteran guy. You sign him on a 1-year deal. You have the young back in Cook, and you have Hines who can do different things. And maybe by next year, he knows the offense.
Yeah. I'm all for team wide receiver. I tweeted it today. I was team wide receiver last year in the draft. Would have loved Jamison Williams. Obviously, he didn't even get a chance to get to the Bills.
Yeah.
But
we were in Vegas. We talked to a lot of them. Love Garrett Wilson. I mean, there's guys it's going to be hard to get. By the way, what'd you think of Bean saying we didn't want to suck enough to get Jamar Chase?
So Bean always picks his words carefully, and like that really didn't get taken out of context as much as I think people want. It was a comparison on, how teams are built, and that, he's like, well, they had some lean years where they were able to get Burrow with the first overall. That's fine. I understand that. But that doesn't mean you can just swing and miss on your guys, which he's done, and sit there and point the finger back.
And you could get, by the way, people have pointed out that they traded that pick to the Vikings, and the Vikings ended up getting Jefferson. Well, the only reason they got Jefferson was because the Eagles were idiots, and Jefferson should have gone earlier, and the Eagles took Jalen Reagor.
Yep.
Now, they've made up for it, I guess, but no one really expected him. Now, you could have made a move if you wanted Jefferson and moved up to get him. Look, Diggs has been awesome, so they used the asset there. So, yeah, that's true, Scott. Nothing's going to work till they get those things
agree,
fixed.
Scott.
And by the way, every guy in the offensive line doesn't have to be a first-round draft pick. Like, there are guys that can play in this league, coached up the right way.
Correct. And that was the other point. And again, I know we're bouncing around here on this show, but I looked at this Bengals offensive line being down 3 starters. And I know they were the line that was what they went to the Super Bowl with. Yeah, but they were so bad that Joe Burrow almost got killed on the field, and they all went and replaced him. So don't give me this that like, oh, they were good enough to start. No, they were backups, and there's no other way around it. They were backups. But they went in with the mindset of we can still run the ball with these guys, with backup linemen that can get downhill, and that they had a game plan on how to do that, and that there was never any adjustments from Ken Dorsey through the season. Like, you don't need to have the Eagles or the Niners offensive line to have a successful offensive line.
Especially when you have Josh Allen.
Right. That's what is so baffling, that like we're sitting here. We all know where the Bills' holes were on this roster. but you work around them and coach so that they're not as glaring holes. You don't have Josh doing 7-step drops when your line can't block. Like that was the baffling things where I saw Joe Burrow and they went in with such an outstanding game plan and execution of how to play with three backup linemen. And the Bills couldn't come up with anything when they had 5 starting linemen. Like that was what is so baffling. So while I agree, you have to address the offensive line, you can also help your offensive line by coaching quick passes, with screens, with getting a running game going, but none of that was used. And that was where it falls back to me on Ken Dorsey.
It does. I said when they ended the season 3 seasons ago, when they went to the AFC Championship, they got beat by the better team. They had won 2 playoff games. It was maybe on the early side, and you left with a lot of hope. And then last year was stunning, but excitement because, I had somebody, we were talking today about Allen in the playoffs, and they were like, he's whatever. I'm like, you do realize his 2 games last year were as well as any quarterback has ever played in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 drives, 7 touchdowns against Belichick, and then that game against Kansas City for the ages. I think you could argue the best game ever played for a quarterback that lost in the playoffs.
Yep.
I don't know if you could say anybody played all the 4th down plays, miraculous plays that he did, right? And so now you go into this year with you got smacked in the face. You struggled, even though they were winning games. This is why I say, Christopher's saying he's not a failure in the playoffs at all. He's agreeing with us. You have to say to yourself, okay, that's why I keep saying everything is on the table. I see people saying they're not trading Stephon Diggs. He's not going anywhere.
No.
You're not doing that to Josh Allen. You're getting somebody who helps you there. You're getting another weapon. You're not getting rid of the one weapon that keeps you from being, I don't even know what you'd be without Diggs offensively. You need more. You need more for him. So.
Yeah, and again, I think I also don't buy this sense that Bean saying we're going to have to get under the cap and that we're not going to make any signings and that Von Miller was our big splash. Like they didn't have money last year and found 120 to give to Von. I don't buy it. They
give
still
him the 5 words, Dan. The cap
isn't real.
Yeah.
It's not real.
I was going for it is a myth.
Okay. Oh, sour cap's a myth. Yeah, it isn't real. Whatever one you want to say for it. Like, yeah, they'll have to manipulate it, which is what Brandon Bean is pretty good at. So there will be room. They understand that while Bean won't go all in for 1 or 2 years, I like Renfro, like Hunter Renfro a lot. I think
and the reason you look at something like that and you say, because when you look at the trades that are the way people have acquired wide receivers, the biggest moves have been in trades. I mean, you look at the Bills with Diggs, the cap is not a myth. Okay.
Here we go.
It's a little hyperbole, what we're talking about. The point is everybody in the NFL knows the truth. You don't ever lose a player that you want to keep because of the cap. You don't ever not go for a player strictly because of the cap. You see what team, first of all, Carson Wentz alone is a reason to show you can work around the cap. Okay.
That contract was supposed to cripple the Eagles. Remember, Mike?
Yeah. Look at the roster now. And that was quick. You can work around it. Yes. Now, there's a point when you look at what the Rams did. It wasn't just, it was that they did that and then added in, giving up all the draft picks, and then they have nothing left. That's a little different than saying, because you're right. Last year, restructure the contracts.
Yeah. And
whatever it takes.
Correct. And what people need to understand is that the one thing that really constricts a salary cap for a team, the fake salary cap that it is that owners need to put 20% of every contract in escrow. They need to put it into a bank account that can't be touched. So if your owner is willing to be and has the money to put that money aside, which Terry Pagula has shown the compensity to do, or like the Rams or anything like that, like you can pretty much manipulate it. You can turn these things into signing bonuses and your owner just cuts checks and then you're back under the cap. Like, it can be done. And to Bean's point, and to Bean's credit, he's done a really good job of manipulating it. So again, I know some people say, oh, the salary cap is real. And look at the Rams. The Rams stunk this year, not because of the salary cap, but because Matt Stafford got hurt and Cooper Kupp got hurt
and everybody got hurt.
Yeah. So like, don't sit there, like, don't use them as an example, or the Saints. Again, their quarterback stunk and retired. That's what hurt the Saints, and they didn't have a backup plan. The Saints aren't a bad team because of the salary cap. They're a bad team because they didn't have a coach and they didn't have a quarterback.
And they were stupid. By the way, the Eagles have the 10th pick in the draft. What are the Saints doing?
But the Saints will have a really good defense, and that has nothing to, that their defense is still really good. It just wasn't performing well this year, and it has nothing to do with the salary cap. So
Kim says, trust the Bean. Okay. I just wonder if there's a little doubt creeping in. I see, when he's rolling, people would be like, man, Bean can do he would restructure a contract. And yeah, you're right. The Rams line was terrible. Guys retired and they had injuries.
They were down to I think they said they had started 16 different offensive linemen. Like, they had practice squad guys starting games. So yeah, that was what happened.
David, the Saints almost won the division. Yo, I think you're joking. Yeah, they almost did with that horrendous division. Yeah. Man, there was some bad ones in there. So, oh, God, Dan, I said we were using this for everybody else to vent. I think we were venting a little bit too.
Yeah, it's not great. Yeah.
We were. We should be going. We'd be in Atlanta already, and then we'd be getting ready to go to Arizona. The nice warm weather for the Super Bowl.
The Bengals.
Way to go, Bills. You cost us some road trips.
And some golf.
I know. Carl says, thanks for the therapy. Look, I think it's going to be an interesting and maybe a enjoyable offseason. I think you're going to see some things. And, LaShawn just said, team lacks an edge. I did think there was a little bit of an edge going there. I think being the underdogs, let everybody count them out. Let everybody say the window's closing. Go ahead. Do all that. And let's see how they come back. And everything's on the table. And when I say on the table, that's why Jordan Poyer is going to go. And I love Poyer. He was awesome for this franchise.
Yep.
He's going to go. He's going to go because you can't pay a guy who's banged up and he's 32.
Correct. Thank you. It's not because they couldn't pay. They could find the money for Jordan Poyer if they wanted to pay. But they don't want to pay a safety that's 32, going to be 33.
He'll be 32. And you have Hyde coming back next year.
Yeah.
Honestly, if the contracts were reversed, I think maybe they'd be bringing back, keeping Poyer.
And I just want to say
thank
this
you, Christopher.
Yeah, I do want to say that. Just the fact of this year, I feel like the subscribers, the views on our videos, they went way up.
Yep.
We got noticed more at games, road games, home games. Everybody coming out to us. Mike was signing autographs left and right. He was signing foam fingers and Bill's necklaces,
sneakers, necklaces.
So like I said, it's not lost on us how much and how grateful we are.
Absolutely.
Especially Jenna. So it really does mean a lot that you guys take your time to listen to us convert oxygen into carbon dioxide. And it's really
using that Fredonia education.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It's just really nice, especially guys that, so many people, we can see the same comments coming in, same people, all this stuff over the last year has just been really cool. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. He said favorite Bills channel. Let other people know because we've been growing. We appreciate it. We have fun. And listen, we are open to suggestions. So you guys have made good suggestions at times. What about a show of this? Or what about doing this?
Yeah.
We're going to have shows during the off season. We're going to be doing this live. We're going to be having other stories, and then we'll be going to the combine. We'll be talking to people. So we'll have fun, but we just hope for next year for you guys, it's a little longer. And by the way, the Super Bowl's in Vegas next year. So let's go.
Gosh, darn.
Yeah. Next year.
Yeah.
No,
Jenna
that was
is
not
the best.
Jenna that got run over by Diggs. Jenna was on the other side of the field. Kim just asked. That was not Jenna. Jenna's fine. She's a bit of a princess. She needed a night off.
Totally.
Yeah. Yes, Daryl, we will continue the show year round. There'll be shows all the time. Not sure if it'll be every Thursday. This time of the year is going to be still busy. It's going to be a lot of stuff going on. So we'll keep you busy. We'll keep you informed.
Oh, trust me, I'll be scouting the wide receivers. I'm
Yes.
team wide receiver.
Yes, Mike is. Dan and I agree a lot, except when he's wrong. That's the only times we don't.
Yeah, that's not so often.
All right, we're gonna sign out here. We appreciate it. Yeah, Jenna wants Vegas. We all want Vegas. Vegas would be fun.
Yeah.
We're gonna sign out. We'll be back. We'll have content this week, and we will make sure that we keep you guys up to date on what's going on. Just tell people about it, right?
That's it.
Let
The
'em know.
season may be over, but the coverage isn't.
That's it. We're still going strong, so we appreciate it. For Dan and for Jenna Cottrell, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Buffalo Plus.